So women gossip about each other, but they don't gossip about each other in ways that is always perfectly easy to understand. You've done some work on gossip. What do women say about each other so that they can conceal their ill intent?
Yeah, so I found two different strategies that seem to characterize women's gossip. One is that they use pro-social concern. So they say things like, "Oh, I'm just worried about her. She's been spending a lot of money lately, and I just don't want her to lose all of her resources. Or I'm worried she's been sleeping around a lot lately, and I don't want her to get hurt." And so it's guised as concern. Um, and I think that, and the data suggests that people don't recognize these types of statements as much as if you say it, malevolently or even just neutrally. So if you say the same thing without phrasing it as concern, people more readily recognize that as gossip, and they dislike the person saying that more. And so what this suggests is guising your gossip with concern, whether it's genuine or not, grants advantages to gossipers, that they can transmit the same reputation harming information, but they're protecting themselves and they're portraying themselves as innocent. Another strategy I found with my colleague Jamie Palmer Hogg, we found that women will also disclose other women's poor treatment of them. So basically, women were more upset than were men if their friends weren't kind or committed, but they also, not only did they feel upset, they disclosed those transgressions, those perceived transgressions to others. So you might say, like, "Oh, like, Becky was so mean to me the other day. She made this comment about my weight, even though she knows I'm insecure about it." And so phrasing it like that made it less obvious that the speaker was gossiping compared to if they said something like, "Becky makes mean comments about Mary all the time." So using this first person, "Becky did this to me," was more protective of the speaker. So people didn't realize the speaker was spreading gossip. They thought it was more appropriate to disclose. They trusted the speaker more. And so these two strategies, what's interesting about both of them is they portray the gossiper as pro social or innocent. I'm just an innocent victim who was hurt, or I'm just worried about my friend. And so what I think is going on here is that if there are advantages to guising your gossip this way, then the most effective way to portray these motivations, these benevolent intentions, is to truly believe them. So I suspect that women might be self deceived about their competition and their malicious gossip. So basically, if you can engage in the same competitive behaviors, but believe you have pro social intentions, then it's the ultimate strategy because you get to compete and preserve your social desirability.
That's fascinating because women and men, show up always as at least moderately different in terms of agreeableness. Like women, when they fill out self-report, they talk about being more agreeable than men. But what you're saying is it's possible that women are filling out self-report as being more agreeable, but if you had an objective measure of the behavior that they were engaging in, like including gossip, then you might not see that same agreeableness. They're couching their gossip or their transmission of potentially bad information in terms of concern or victimization.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a wide body of literature suggesting that women are more or potentially are more self-deceived than men. So they did this meta-analysis of ethical decision making, and women perceive themselves to be more ethical when making decisions, but if you control for social desirability bias, the sex difference goes away.
Hmm.
And then there's also data, I think it's Rudman's data, where she found that women say they like female leaders when you ask them explicitly, but when you measure it on an implicit level, they don't like female leaders any more than men do. And then there's also
Like an
data.
implicit association test or what?
I think that's how they did it.
Okay.
And then there's also data with women's sexuality too, where women will say that they aren't as sexually motivated, But then if you use like a bogus pipeline, you find that they are more sexually motivated than they disclosed.
Mm.
And then there's other work finding that like there's this disconnect between women's self-report of their sexual arousal compared to their bodily arousal. There's just like they don't
Yeah.
correlate that strongly. And so if we take all of these patterns together, you know, gossip, liking female leaders, and sexuality, what I think they have in common is that perhaps women are self deceived about all the inclinations and motivations that other women would have disliked. You know, so
Mm.
other women wouldn't like if you're aggressive and spreading gossip. Other women wouldn't like if you don't like other women, you know, female leaders. And other women wouldn't like if you were super sexual because that registers you as a mating threat. Um, and so I think it would be really interesting to kind of use more of these designs to see, you know, are we under detecting some of women's like more prurient and antisocial inclinations?
That's fascinating.